Good news coming out of Seattle. While on the federal level, we got no progress when it comes to raising the minimum wage. Republicans were able to successfully stall that. When it comes to the state level or the local level, we have actually had some progress. So I told you last week, Hawaii did raise their minimum wage. But now, much more importantly, because of the sheer magnitude of the raising, Seattle has announced a $15 minimum wage, far higher than they have now, and in fact higher by far than the federal government was even considering raising it over the past week. Now, a couple of facts about that raise. Businesses with more than 500 employees nationwide will have 3 years to phase in that raise, while smaller employers get 5 years to ratchet up their pay scales. So right off the bat, if you're sort of a hardcore free market capitalist who's worried about what effect this will have on businesses, they're being about as conservative as possible about the timing of it. They're giving businesses the extreme benefit of the doubt when it comes to how long they phase this in. 5 years, that is a really long time. You can't really complain. It should be raising that much in 5 years anyway. It shouldn't take some sort of special local level legislation. Now, after those 5 years, after reaching $15 an hour, the city's minimum wage will automatically climb by 2.4% each year, regardless of the rate of inflation. And so that is very important, perhaps in the long run, even more important than the flat $15 raise, because that's one of the problems we've had with our minimum wage now, is that it simply does not keep pace with inflation. And so you have this huge political fight about raising the minimum wage, and then just a couple of years after that, it feels wasted because you once again fall behind. The poorest, most vulnerable people in America once again are losing the race. And so thankfully they thought about that. They were able to get that passed. Now, perhaps most controversially, and I say this because I was for a long time involved in food service, the waitstaff industry, catering, barista, bartender, things like that. You know that they don't make as much money. They don't make the minimum wage. But listen to what Seattle is going to do when it comes to those food service employees. After 5 years, the separate minimum hourly pay rates for tipped and non-tipped workers will disappear, and all employees citizen-wide will have to be paid $15 hourly or more. Which means that after those 5 years, the gap between food service people who get tips and so don't have to get the federal minimum wage, or in this case, the state minimum wage, and those who don't, is going to be gone. And that's where I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I fully believe that in the course of these 5 years, the businesses of Seattle could easily adapt to the higher minimum wage. And I think in the long run, it'll probably be a great economic benefit to that area. You're going to have a lot more people with a lot more pocket money that they will be spending in Seattle, and that's going to help their economy. But when it comes to the gap between tipped and non-tipped employees, that I'm not so sure about. And I don't want to just come up with some sort of bullshit opinion. I understand, because I've been on that side of the aisle, I guess, I understand why things are the way they are, and I'm not sure about them messing with it in this way. Feel free to head down below the like button to the comments and disagree with me. And understand, of course, that all of these elements of the minimum wage increase, it's part of a deal that the government of Seattle and local business leaders and union leaders and things like that, they've been working on this. And so I guess they know more about it than me. Anyway, this is good news because it's sort of leading the way, I suppose, for a nationwide discussion about a significant increase to the minimum wage. And also, it will allow us, at least in a few years, to have a test bed, an experiment that we can look at and see what actual effect does a much higher minimum wage have on the economies and on the businesses of this area. Of course, we can only take it so far. People love to look at like one case study and say, oh, I understand everything about this now. But if it works, it doesn't necessarily work because they raised the minimum wage. Seattle, I'm sure, is different than the rest of the country in many ways. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't necessarily fail because of this. It could be that big chain businesses, big nationwide businesses want this to fail here so that it doesn't go nationwide. And to that end, perhaps they pull out of the city. I mean, that could be sort of a short-term thing. You see when Walmart moves into an area very often, they'll set their prices locally very low. They'll starve out all the other businesses there, and then they jack up the price. So businesses are willing to make that sort of short-term investment. Anyway, if you're a proponent of higher minimum wage, if you think that this would not only be good for the poor of America, but also be a boon to the national economy, then you got to be excited about this. It's not often we get to talk about good news here on the program. This is a case of that, I think.